It's a pleasure for me to introduce here Shriram Nataragan, who is a senior technology executive with a terrific record of success in software architecture, technical and operational management, product development, and delivery. He has been instrumental in helping persistent customers move their product infrastructure from traditional models to the new world. He also helped in selecting the right vendors, making the right technology choices, and driving cloud and mobility adoption among product development leaders. As services go through a cloud, mobility, Internet of Things transformation, performance across various layers becomes increasingly important, as Shriram points out. And along these lines, Shriram is currently looking for the best of breed solutions to deliver the promise of the future. Occasionally, he worries about the singularity, the rise of nanobots, and someone accidentally 3D printing a black hole. It's a really pleasure for us to have Shriram here. Without any further ado, I will leave the stage to him and for a very interesting talk of his.
Thanks, Man. As all right. So when Dr. Yangan said that they have this lecture series that goes on at CMU, if I'd like to talk, I'm like, are you sure? What would you like to know? One of the things that we do at the company I work with is meet with a lot of engagements, go through a lot of look at the breadth of the industry. So he said, your experience there would help our students understand what is going on in the outside world and understand, especially from a student's point of view, what should you do to prepare yourself to meet the big bad world out there. So I was just telling her that this title is a work in progress, but I was about telling myself I'll fix it, and too late, it shit. All right, but so here we go. What to expect when you're expecting. Um, let's the in terms of what we will do today is going to give you an introduction. Osman kind of gave me a very glowing one. I'll tell you a little bit of the truth behind that, and that also helps you understand the biases with which I'm coming to the picture, so you can adjust accordingly. Then we'll talk about this. Kind of looks like a Hollywood disaster movie, so we're going to talk about some of the things that are collapsing. There'll be a small band of heroes that probably save the day and how they're going to do it. That's kind of how it's going to play out. I have a lot of stuff here which will probably take me weeks and weeks to cover. So if you have any questions in between or any thoughts, comments, any plot twists that you want to follow through, feel free to stop me and we'll go through those. So by way of introduction, Cheryl and Wendy have know that Persistent is a company. It's been around for 24 years. Ravi, of course, knows this very intimately. Sorry, didn't mean to miss you there. Um, we have been doing a lot of software development for a lot of companies. So we like to kind of see the world in two lenses. One is the companies that are in the business of software, the people like the Microsofts, the Oracles, uh, Googles, the PayPals, and SAPs of the world. Those people, these are the guys that have software as their business. This is what they do. They develop software that eventually drives their bottom line. There are some other side of the world where software is they are a software driven business. So they don't produce software, but they consume and produce software internally for themselves that they do a lot for. So these are a few of the things. So if you look at it, we've been working with Valley startups for a while now. For pretty much of our 24-year existence, we've been doing a lot of startup work. So you may recognize some of the startup names that we worked with, like PayPal, Cognos, Netezza, Jigsaw, and the like. So that's about the introduction. So what I'd like to talk to you about is some of the collapses that are happening. Like what's happening in business models, right? By 2000, early 2000s, we were absolutely certain that e-commerce was here to stay. Retail, physical retail was not going to make it. And suddenly Apple comes around and kind of upends everything. So that's a business model that we thought was done and over with, but suddenly it's making a resurgence. So we don't know the what's changing there. Um, Hotels used to be a very easy and a very predictable business line to be in. Not a predictable, but more of you knew what worked, you knew where the people were coming in, what the business drivers were, what were the motivations. You could give them frequent flyer miles, you could give them loyalty points. You knew how it worked. You would set up your operations to rise and flow with the season. So Christmas time, you bring in a lot of people to work for your hotels, and sometimes you just have lower number of staff. But suddenly, Airbnb comes up and says, "Look at all the available inventory of empty rooms in people's houses. How can we leverage that?" Suddenly, everybody realizes, "Hey, this is a great idea. I can do this," and it becomes a huge thing. Taxis were very well understood. People wanted to go from place A to place B, and taxi companies use technology to probably have their calls routed. When GPS came along, they used the technology to say, okay, I'll know where my drivers are. I can push the right guy to the right um, customer that wants service at a particular point. But then Uber comes along and says, okay, I have all of this stuff. I'm going to take that and append the entire business model and say, why does it have to be a high bar to enter into this taxi business? Why don't everybody that's got a car and a reasonable record go and start driving this? So we are seeing the collapse of business models as it as you will. So what else looks very strong today and solid today that might collapse? It's something that back in the day, encyclopedias were huge. You could Blockbuster had you over a barrel. Uh, a Polaroid was king in terms of instant photography. Print magazines were king, but one by one, all of them have been falling. And if you look at that, the rate of fall has increased over the years. So, what are we looking at here? So, there's disruption in terms of payments as well. So, not just business, but the way we do business is also being disrupted. So, we're going from this is just conservative. MasterCard and PayPal is fairly established now, but when they came around, they were pretty disruptive. Um, Gambling, something as traditional, that probably the second oldest job in the world, is also going through a lot of changes. So what's all of this stuff? And the way to look at it is all of these guys are not just leveraging technology, but looking at how to fundamentally redo their business model using technologies that their competitors are using, and looking at the world in completely different lenses. And the rate of change is also pretty quick. So this is a graphic that many of you may have seen, like the history of Airbnb. How did it come up? It was an idea in 2007. Till about 2009, they were kind of uh, dialing around. Suddenly in 2010, 2011, they got this idea, they raised some money, and then in 2014, they had an estimated $10 billion valuation. They went from about a few $1 million in funding to $1 billion in pretty much no time. And this is not just the exception. This is kind of the way businesses are operating and growing in very recent times. You've probably seen some graphs where it took X number of years for telegraph to reach 5 million people, X number of years for television to reach some number of people, X number of years for telephones to reach the same number of 5 million people. And if you see, the number of years has been reducing for each progressive technology. Now, even if you take the modern technologies like Skype, Twitter, or Gmail, or Facebook, the rate of acceleration is kind of astronomical now. So the barrier for entry, as I was telling Usman during lunch, is that if you have a good idea, the barrier to entry to experiment and play with it is very, very low. People are able to quickly come up with ideas. WhatsApp is in a market where AT&T was, or Verizon, you can take any carrier for that matter, was making a lot of money hand over fist for SMSs. WhatsApp came in and said, why does it have to be this way? And let's kind of say everybody's got a smartphone. Let's give them free messaging for, oh well, $1 per year messaging for life as they currently are doing. And it became a $400 million user proposition when they sold it to Facebook for $19 billion. So in this milieu, forget about students, forget about faculty, forget about people. How do companies compete? How do companies stay afloat? What should they be doing? And then once we know that, we can probably filter it down to what individuals should be doing at each level of the organization. Well, yeah, even the bees are in collapse. So, what should we be doing? So, here is some good news then. I'm not very thrilled about the choice of font. I do apologize for the font. I thought it looked much better in my view of the world. Anyways, um, so here is a Forrester study that says 80% of the people of all companies, not just tech companies, not just the Silicon Valley echo chamber, but everywhere. They did an entire survey of all of the companies that they follow, and they asked their execs to say, what's going to happen? What are you most worried about? What are you most optimistic about? And they came back, 80% of them had said, technology will be disrupting my business, my way of doing business, my way of attracting and retaining customers, my way of delivering business value in the next 12 months. So that's 80% of the people saying that. So, okay, that's probably very straightforward. But now they asked a similar question. They said, okay, are you ready to take charge? You know that it's going to be disrupted. What are you going to do about it? Are you well equipped? We have the team in place. About 15% of the people said we have the necessary people and the skills required to make it happen. So they know that they're going to be disrupted. They don't have the teams in place. About 19% says that they have the technology in place, which to me says there's a huge opportunity for a small band of people to go around and change the world with the right ideas to the right uh, companies. Now, what do these small band of people that are in this room, how we're going to save the world, is by understanding what is driving this overall uh, change in the industry. Right. So people are expecting highly personalized, highly customized, highly individualized experiences for everybody. So what they're looking at is a, a, a service that's kind of tied specifically for me. My provider should know who I am. If you've seen the recent, I think it's a Kaiser Permanente ad, one of the guys says, what would you like to see in a doctor? The guy says, I don't want the doctor to look at me and say, hi, David. He wants to know, the doctor should know beforehand what this person is about, what his history is, what his concerns are, what he wants to do. And that sort of expectation is built in. People kind of say it's the millennial generation that says it's me, 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 me. But don't, I wouldn't put too much stock into that. Humans have been about me, 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 me since the dawn of time. But just now we have the technology to ability to provide for this level of customization, this level of context sensitive information. Um, all right. So context sensitive and personalized. So here is somebody walking into a store, and we know that this person is walking in because they're carrying their smartphone, which is evidently shown to everybody's body. So we know exactly where they are. The company, the retail stores knows where they are because, and they know what they're looking at because they know they have the Bluetooth technology, they have the beacon technology, they have, if they have an app on the phone, they know exactly what the orientation is, which way they're facing, which way they're moving, which are they leaning into to a particular aisle and picking up something. So all of this stuff the store knows. And if you're lingering over a particular candy aisle and you don't seem to be making up your mind, that gives the opportunity for a store to say, how about this? And I give you 20% off. Will you pick up that bag of candy? It's easy for them to do it because it's they know what you're going to be doing. They know what the inventory is. So all of this can be completely customized based on what the store has set in terms of rules, in terms of what they want to sell to the customer and what the customer wants to actually buy. So this kind of makes the market more efficient, and the way that's been achieved is not one human has been involved in the entire process except the one that's looking at the screen. Um, Not only that, the entire experience can be detected at when they actually go to check out this um, material. They are able to look at what coupons have been offered. So they don't have a paper coupon that they have to scan. They say, oh, we know this customer is standing at this counter. We have given them this offer, so automatically deduct what they need to do. And if they have, this is the days before uh, iPay came into being. So nowadays, you could even, if you have the iPhone space system, Apple space system built into your phone, you'll be able to go on your way without even having to swipe anything. So, so far, making sense. Any thoughts, questions? We pause here to see if, all right. So it's easy for us to see in a retail space. So that's just one example of how we can, yes.
So I know there's a lot of incentive when somebody walks in the aisle and kind of like in the Minority Report movie where they walk in and they get all these coupons and all that.
Yes, yes.
But how do you bridge, how do you consider the phase where you might be too annoying versus uh, letting them opt in on coupons and things?
Right. So this is people that do opt in. So this is you wouldn't want people that there's always this creepiness factor. Exactly. So if people don't opt in, they say they don't want to be part of this loyalty program, they don't install the app, we don't know what they're doing. But for somebody that actually wants to be led, wants to be um, catered to, yes, then this technology applies. But this only applies when people actually buy into the program and they say, okay, I want to be, I have this app going. There's also the case where, in one of the cases where we actually produce something for a mall. So if you download the mall app, you could be followed around the entire mall. So again, that's also a buy-in because you are opting into and installing it. It's a very good point.
And also, I was looking at your other slide where you were talking about how certain businesses can become irrelevant.
Oh, yes.
And so I was just wondering what you think it would take for Google to become irrelevant.
um, it's very difficult to imagine. So mainly because they're in so many places and doing so many things. So why would they to become irrelevant? They could go irrelevant. Search is going to be pretty big for a long time to come. It may be that the data becomes so um, customized and into different silos that overall generalist search engine kind of concept goes away. Or the reverse could happen. Everybody is able to find data by different discovery mechanisms than going through a search engine, which is more difficult to happen than the other way around, where people stop paying advertising money. There's something else that comes in that says, I know more than I know more about your customers than Google does, and here's what I'll do. So most of the money goes away. Then it might happen, but it's very difficult to think of a way where Google becomes irrelevant in the near future. Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So you were trying to make a point about why how companies like Airbnb or Uber were able to come up with the strategy that they came up with.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't quite catch what did they think about and how did they come up with those innovative ideas.
One easy way to think about it is if you are when a small company like Airbnb, there were three roommates. The world is your oyster. I mean, anything goes. If you make $1 million, it's something more than what you wildly imagine looking at two air mattresses and a bathroom, right? So the the openness to ideas is different. The other thing that I think most people kind of hit upon, but I think Jeff Bezos has said very clearly is your margin is my opportunity. So if somebody is there making a hefty margin on their business, and if I can innovate to get to that place where people assume, okay, they have to buy taxi licenses for them to operate, or they have to stand up a structure and staff it with concierges and cashiers and whatnot for a hotel to function. And they say, this is my barrier to entry and nobody can come here. But if you can flip it around and say, why should I build all of that stuff? Can I lease it? Can I rent it? Can I somehow leverage what already exists and apply technology to connect the two rather than uh, investing in physical infrastructure? Then that's where to go. That's the way to go for disrupting this. And the way to do it is your technology needs to be, chops need to be very, very high. So you cannot have a user experience that doesn't satisfy in the first go. If it doesn't, then people are not going to come back. They're going to fall back to existing status quo systems. So you have a narrow window, but then there is a window. All right. So another way that people are looking at uh, the expectation is that not just it's context sensitive and personalized to me, but it's across all the systems. It's across all the channels available to me that I'd be able to consume a company's services. Say, for instance, again, taking a example of a hotel that's able to help people get on, uh, get services, reserve services through multiple channels is uh, how Intercontinental has done this. So based on their rewards program, based on what they want, you are able to provide them exact way to get to connect them to the concierge services, not just through their iPad, through their telephones, through their email, through even to their wearable technologies that can go. So it's multiple ways to get things going. There's a lot of retail companies that are definitely doing this in terms of how do you take care of payments using mobile phone wallets through advertising through multiple channels, providing you paper coupons to email coupons to uh, something that comes up during the app or in advertising as well. So there's a lot of ways you can reach the customer, and they want to have a uniform experience. Like it can't be that okay, I have this coupon that I received on my iPad, but if I go to pay with my phone, it doesn't work. It needs to follow me. It needs to be a seamless, friction-free thing that transcends the channels with which the company is using to communicate with the user. Um, there's also uh, a lot of innovation in terms of how insights are being generated and disseminated using a lot of these technologies. So there's you have access to a lot of data, and you can feed it to this huge, humongous analytics engine, IBM Watson in this case, and come up with diagnoses that are much better than what a seasoned doctor would do, because the data that Watson can slurp up and analyze is so much larger than a human person can be expected to carry and understand. It can take into factors like ethnicity, race, where you have traveled. All of that stuff can go into kind of coming up with a diagnosis. Now, why you don't see a lot of the hospitals and clinics and major healthcare organizations picking it up and running with it is that there is the data quality issue. So, if um, the historical data about your tests and your data is not as good as you would expect, the diagnosis that you arrive at is not as accurate. So people are not jumping up there. But as we go along, our data collection capabilities, our data enrichment and cleansing capabilities are going up. So which means that as we go along, we're going to see more and more of automated uh, diagnosis based on analytic models that have been built out rather than actual doctors. Mhm.
It is not a problem solver. In other words, it can tell you where the hungry people are in the world,
Yes.
but it can't tell you how to solve hunger.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's where the education institutions have to up their game in helping people do critical thinking and how do we analyze the data, because Watson isn't going to do that. So now we have this real rich, wealthy data capability, but what we don't have still is the problem solving side of that.
Absolutely. So the way to look at it is you have all of these answers. Now we need to build the skills to ask the right questions of this treasure trove of information that we have in front of us. So we're moving from kind of big data to big information. So there's a lot of information. Uh, there are people that say that most of the drug trials that need to happen, they've already happened because somebody else has been taking the same drugs in different places. And if you just can capture their history, you can check if this drug interacts with the other just by looking back.
Yeah, there's a whole situation there in terms of, if you look at it, you can diagnose, but then you can cure, and then ultimately you could prevent.
Yes.
And so you need to think of what those phases are, because you're going to mess up companies as you move through those stages. Actuarial table people don't like not having the control, quite frankly.
Very true.
And then I have one other quick question, because unfortunately I have to leave.
Okay.
You do a lot of discussion here on B2C,
Mm-hmm.
all more consumer oriented.
Yes.
How do you see the models changing for B2B, where somebody is working between companies? What's the distortion likely to occur?
Uh, Companies are going to, so the change is going to happen first in the B2C space, and then that expectation is going to kind of translate into the B2B. So there are contracts that last multiple years, so there's some rigidity built into the system, the way businesses to business operate. There's always a power dissimilarity that usually there's somebody that's at the behest of somebody else. So those things are a little less amenable to change. So but they will change. If you think of anything enterprise applications before the 90s or even the early 2000s, people used to put up with the most horrendous user experience. But once they started seeing that, okay, I can get a very intuitive experience with an iPhone or an Android phone or a smartphone, they said, why can't I get this sort of intuitive user experience in my enterprise application? That started developing, and we have this whole enabling layer that kind of comes up and says, yes, you can expect a very context sensitive, very task oriented, few clicks application for most of your business functions that you're going to perform. And that came in because of the user expectation, where the B2C kind of started it, and it started flowing in. In fact, Apple didn't have to sell into enterprises. The people just brought it into their enterprises. I want this to work on my iPad over here, and that's how it kind of pushed the envelope for the B2B. So you will see that happening. You see that happening, but it's very difficult to discern from the outside. It's the way companies are operating are. I go. No, I know that you have to leave, but the way companies are operating is going to be in the API layer. So they're turning themselves into, instead of predetermined ways of interaction between two companies, they just say, okay, I'm going to open up my API, create a service creation environment, do with it what you will, with the rules that I set up. And then if there's some beautiful value that gets created, we'll find a way to monetize that. Sure. All right. Okay. All right. So we have all of this data, as she was mentioning. We have to ask the right questions, and what we want to do with these questions is very, very key, because if you don't have the questions to navigate through the data, you're going to get lost. And one way to look at it is, okay, don't collect data for the sake of data. See if you can convert it to information, from information to insights to actionable items that you can actually take. In that end, you can very clearly apply it to um, reduction of fraud, reduction of um, a cost of acquisition of a customer. Maybe if you realize that somebody is asking for the same thing or requesting something, or your website is not behaving the way, by analyzing the logs, you can come back and say, hey, this page isn't working the way it should, and you retool your business flow to make it easier for your customers. So these are things that are, again, the technology is there to focus the people, focus the business around what their customers want, and reduce the time to uh, market. I think that's a way of where we are going. Another way of where we're getting extremely personal and up close is in terms of personalized care. You're looking at uh, a person's genetic sequence and taking some markers from there and creating a regimen, a fitness regimen, a drug cocktail, or even a therapy based on what their genetic makeup is. So this whole new industry that's kind of coming up, where where there are custom tailored not just experiences but custom tailored healthcare outcomes based on who you are and what your biological makeup is. If you throw in not just genomics, but if you throw in some wearable technology as well, so it can tell you you're not sleeping well, so probably your test results from your latest blood sugar study is not going to be too valid because you're stressed at work, because your Fitbit tells your doctor that, hey, this person is not sleeping well, so these results, you've got to probably do them again, or probably not even do the test, so you can save time and money that way. I just heard this a couple of days ago, and this just blows my mind. There is personalized food, and it starts with it's aimed at soldiers in harm's way in conflict areas. So they have some variable technology that tells the overall system what the soldier is missing. So they're lacking sodium, they've lost a lot of electrolytes, they're drinking too much water. So it can figure out what the soldier needs based on what they actually are measured on a daily basis, and a specific goo is printed for them. It is 3D printing that uh, that can go and nourish the person in the field. In fact, that's the one thing that actually completely blew my mind away was it's supposed to be better than the meals ready to eat that they are currently served, because to make the MRE, they have to heat it up to a huge degree to kill off any possibility of contamination and microbes. But since you're printing it, you're able to actually make it a little bit more. The texture is better, the flavor is much better retained, and you can give it a uh, the whole experience is better because of this ability to customize the meal for that particular person, even from a flavor profile. Maybe I like salty foods, or I like sweet foods. I can probably that can be mixed in as well based on a personal profile. They didn't talk about that, but that's certainly a way to go. No, no, not yet. This is probably in the hands of DARPA right now. All right. So what's making this possible, right? So it's this group of uh, technology advances that we are seeing. One is the ability to collaborate better. So we have, I mean, with all the Facebooks of the world or Twitters of the world, uh, endless cat videos and party announcements aside, there is a much better framework for us to collaborate. And these things are all said and done, making us a much more smarter species than without. And with mobility, you're able to connect to the rest of the uh, human ecosystem in the mind space, wherever you are, in whatever you're doing, and with whatever uh, context that you're operating in, whether you're in a store, whether you're on the beach, whether you're uh, lost somewhere, you want to find directions back. So you have always collected and you're consuming data as you go along. And in terms of getting the whole thing smarter, we have better and better analytics technologies, big data and analytics together, where we are able to draw in a huge amount of data and we're able to analyze it either post hoc, where we are doing some sort of a post analysis, or in stream analysis. Say, for instance, you want to detect frauds, you want to say this person bought lunch in New York and there is a dinner request coming from Paris. That just doesn't happen. So these things are real time thing. There are patterns that you can detect, and there are certain times where the patterns themselves can be detected by the system. They can say, okay, this is what we should be looking for. I mean, this is just one example, right? Like dinner in Paris and lunch in New York is not possible. But what other things are not possible? Because the bad guys are always there trying to one up the system. So we need the automatic methods to identify what is anomalous behavior and catch it. Stop it. And of course, enabling all of this stuff is the delivery model of the cloud that's built up, right? So you're able to create uh, scalable, infinitely scalable for all intents and purposes. People say infinitely scalable, but scalable to the extent of reason. A cloud-based model where you are able to uh, say, this is what it costs me to serve a particular business need. And if that is the case, if you double it or triple it, I'm just going to just double or triple my data expenses or my infrastructure expenses. But with the cloud, the kind of cost kind of remains almost flat, while your capability to serve can grow astronomically high. One interesting anecdote that I heard is that Amazon, when it launched the AWS services, they had a fixed number of servers doing their website and their e-commerce platform. Now, as of 2013, they were launching as many servers on AWS in a week as many servers that were there on Amazon.com, serving Amazon.com in 2005. So they're launching an Amazon.com sized company every week on AWS. So it's amazing to see that you can build that amount of capability, that amount of security that comes in, the amount of infrastructure that comes in into the system for any new company that comes into being today. All right. So in terms of what's driving this, so there is like a six element mix that's going on. One, cloud computing is mainstream. People are adopting it. It's very easy to be an Amazon.com level company just by using their services, or a Microsoft level company by using Azure services. Mobility is is everywhere. Everybody's using it. You have the ability to analyze lots of data. Everybody is very happy by apps, and by apps I mean the the ability to get in context data presented to you in a way that you can act upon in the right context. So that's what it is, and that you will see that enterprises are moving towards a lot of task-oriented apps, which and process-oriented apps, which are long-lived. Task-oriented apps, which may be like, I want to take a survey of how this talk went. That would be just a one task app. I just build one, get it done, and out the door it goes, and that's it. There's no more. That's the life cycle of the app. Those task-oriented apps are going to be throwaway, do-it-yourself, very short-lived apps. And user experiences, to your point, I mean, if we don't get user experience right, whether it's a mobile screen, whether it's the way the system informs them, whether it's too creepy to say, okay, do you want this candy? Those sort of things are very, very crucial. And one major piece is the way agile development has revolutionized the software world. So it makes it easy for people to do experiments in a time-bound manner to say, okay, let me go this way, see if it works, show people a working prototype or a product, see how they feel, take their feedback, course correct, lather, rinse, repeat, and connect, and keep going. That is uh, one of the key aspects of how things are changing. So this is how the cloud is changing your world. You have a question? Sorry. Okay. All right. All right. So, and there's the whole emergence of APIs, and I think she was asking a question about how this translates into the B2B world. So, the way companies are interacting used to be in terms of contracts, in terms of, okay, these are invoices, this is what I did, these are the goods that I transferred over to you, and those were the units of interchange between companies. Now it's data is the new currency, and API is the new highways or pathways in which data is being interchanged. So this is, I think, the entire ecosystem is made up. App ecosystem is possible only because of the APIs, the ability to blend together interfaces from different services and create a new experience is what has led to this ecosystem. Because we talked about the agile development cycle. So you take something that you want to build, you want to say, this is what I think is going to be a product, take it into a small chunk that will say, I'll take a couple of weeks to build it out, validate it, come back, verify, and then check if this potential shippable product is worth the money, worth the time for. So in terms of, it is the one before? Oh, thank you. Sure, in fact, we can go down into a lot more detail. It's part of, I kind of took an agile training session. I just took that one. So in terms of what is actually creating value today or in the next year or so, if you were in 1975 and I was around then, you would be doing mainframes. Around the 80s, the systems like huge Unix systems, DOS was making up its appearance. So there was money to be made in selling operating systems. And in the 90s, it was the era of databases where uh, the oracles of the world, the Sybases of the world were trying, Informix of the world were battling it out. Between the last few years, ERP and apps have been the way of what's actually delivering value. But now we are clearly reaching the point of where data and information is what is driving the economy. Not Nobody cares about what's running underneath, what operating systems you're using, what databases you're using, what ERP systems, how you're consuming them in apps. It doesn't really matter. It's all that matters is the data and how you can access the data. Is it secure? Is it monetizable? Is it monitorable? Is there access controls in place to make sure uh, the right people are getting the right data at the right time? Yes. Right. So it doesn't matter what ERP systems you use. It's become less of an important system to. I mean, you could run things from COBOL and mainframes for all we care today, as long as we're able to consume the data in a predictable fashion. Yep.
Can we say functionality instead of just saying data? Because if we're just talking about the infrastructure doesn't matter, it's just how it's being used, it's being put to use. So
Right.
is it still data or would you go with functionality?
Functionality is now we are assuming that what functionality that the creators of a particular piece of software have in mind is key. But I think that's where the apps realm is. Like today, yes, functionality would be key in saying that, okay, this is how I would like you to use my data, and this is where it is. But going forward, uh, we won't be constrained by the app developers themselves saying this is how you should use what I want to see. The data becomes much more of an open system to could directly interact with, and you want to view it a different way than I do, both while performing, say, payroll functions. I should be able to do it the way I want to, and there'll be new business use cases that come out because of that level of customization between you and me. Right? Okay. So we know about the 4 V's of big data, right? So we don't need to go into this. So all of this is happening. So we have all of these technologies, we have these expectations from customers and humans, and even businesses are expecting to behave in different ways going forward. So how is it that people that are entering into the workforce, that are in the workforce, how do I help my company or my either the company I start or a company that I'm working with? How do I ensure that the that we survive and thrive in the near future? There is job security is a, is a mirage, so don't believe in that. The way to do it is if you are a technologist, this is what we use internally at my company. So we say this is your full stack where you would operate and kind of get yourself familiar with the entire stack. Don't tell me that I don't know how to run things on a cloud. Like, or I don't know how things run on a cloud. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me I don't know how to do defect tracking or bug tracking. Don't tell me I don't know how scripting works or Office products work. So don't tell me that. So you need to be uh, uh, inch deep and a mile wide on most of the areas. And what we also say is be pie shaped. And in the font I had chosen, pie actually looks with straight lines. So where you are spread out across a large area of across where you want to operate on, and you have at least two very good specialities. And I say two, it's not necessary for uh, that. In terms of services industry where I come from, you need to have two legs to stand on. So in case uh, your primary skill is kind of becoming obsolete, you have another leg to stand on. But if you are elsewhere where you're trying to develop your own product, then a T-shaped is fine. You get one specialization and you're good to go. And you're aware of what's going on. You're a mile wide elsewhere. Um, and another way of thinking about it is you need to be constantly expanding your reach. There are new things that are coming up, and there may be cases where you need to reinvent yourself every once in a while. And people have suggested that it takes about 10,000 hours of specialization to become an expert in any skill. So when you do that, it takes, and assuming you work 2,000 hours a year, that's about 5 years of building up a skill or a capability that you want to build up. And then you have 2 years to exercise that skill, and you're the master of the universe for those 2 years. And then it becomes uh, an exercise to start doing it again, where you develop a new allied skill, probably adjacent to this, or something that you pick up new and then you run with it. And there are certain interesting things that you could do with, okay, now I had skills in mobility, now I have big data, or I started with machine learning, now I am doing some uh, study on drugs and how they interact with each other. And you can use what you've brought, what you've gained in the analytics space or the machine learning space, and apply it there with very interesting results. One of the things that I've like to say is if you, I don't remember who said this, but I think it's one of the people in the Xerox PARC research laboratory. They said if one way to predict the future, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. So if you are got an idea that kind of takes the world by storm, and you've established insurmountable lead in a particular area of thought leadership or product space, there's nobody to catch you there. So that is the one way of building job security. The other way is to kind of be resilient to change. So when the changes happen, you bend with the changes and kind of stay on. That's another way to do it. One question I think that was asked is why is it going to be creepy for people to be accepting candy coupons? So one of the, again, the Silicon Valley ethos is to be able to eat your own dog food, right? You develop something, you test it on yourself first. So while that provides you an easy way to test things, a good set of beta testers to begin with, the other thing is it lets you run through some of the critical questions on security, privacy, ethics, because you're trying it on yourself. It kind of lets you think these through before you turn it on to an unsuspecting world. Um, these are a few things. There's a lot of open source that's going on. I'm pretty sure in the university milieu that you use a lot of open source. At some point, you will not be cash-strapped students, but you'll be rich in that point. Please do contribute back to the open source community. Um, the one thing that I'd like to leave you with is it's not especially um, it's usually rare for to find people that are from a technical background get to the CEO spot of a company that they didn't create or found. But it's in view. As you saw, 80% of the companies are worried that they're going to be disrupted by technology, and I'm assuming that as we go along, more and more CEOs are going to be coming from a technical background rather than a marketing or a sales background. With that, I thought I'll stop here, and any questions, please do feel free to ask.
Thanks, Shriram. Any questions?
So not many companies are inventing the UI for enterprise applications. Do you know what is the kind of effort going on in terms of changing the UI of enterprise applications? We know that the change has started, but is it really since they are not in the B2C domain, they are in the B2B domain, so it's very difficult to know what's going on in enterprise domain right now on the UI rationalization.
Right. I would challenge that. I would say that yes, it is possible to see what the enterprise UIs look like. Mainly because most of the some of the enterprise applications are now moving to the software as a service world. So if you look at Salesforce or if you are used to like Workday or ADP or whatever it is. So those are software as a service that you are able to see as a consumer, and you can see that this is what the enterprise are using internally. And you can get a quick pulse of what it is. But of course, there are certain things which are completely entrenched, siloed within the enterprise that you will have no view as sitting outside. Uh, but that is what it is. Unless you are tasked to go and solve the problem, you won't probably get to see it.
Not sure I understand.
Right. So I thought, Doug, so the way I think it was a Microsoft person that came up with this concept. I'm not sure. I don't remember the name. They said that if you build a product, you try it out yourself internally. The developers, the team that builds it, should try it out. They said if we were making dog food, we would eat our dog food ourselves. So that kind of came up with the term dog food. So it's now become a verb in the value that says I dog food my own stuff. So I build a mobile application. I test it myself. I use it on myself first. If I do a banking application, I test it on myself first. So that is usually it was used to ensure that the developers and the testers and the operations people know exactly what you're building and be able to provide quick support because you are looking at it from a user perspective. That was the main use of it because you couldn't go off and hire more testers because you're a cash strapped startup. So you would probably get your own engineers to go do your testing for you and kind of test it yourself. But the flip side is if you do that, you kind of come up with security issues quickly. If there are some ethics issues, because you're applying it on yourself, you wouldn't ship a product that you've not used yourself, it's not affected you on a personal level. Same thing with privacy as well. So if your app kind of takes breaches your privacy too much, you since you're trying it on yourself, you have a very clear view of what the customer is going to feel like, and that will help you if you're trying to go beyond the straight and narrow. That'll kind of give you a sense, okay, this is going beyond the line. Let's come back. Thank you.